Hello, I'm Amy and this video is part of my Reknit Revolution project. I'm going to show you how to open the seams of a knitted garment. This is the first step in the replace cuff reknit process, and although it's called replace cuff, it also applies to replacing the hem or any other edge section of a knitted garment. And this task of unpicking the seams would also be useful if you were altering a section within a knitted garment, reknitting the whole thing. This piece has been unravelled and then partially reknitted, or anything where you need to take the garment apart. Right, so when I say open the seams, you'll be wanting to do that so you can get the piece flat before opening a row and getting to the stitches or unravelling it or whatever it is that you're going to do. But be aware that you should only open seams of certain kinds of garment. It's not every knitted garment that you can open the seams successfully. So you're wanting to avoid overlocked seams, and those look like this. Okay, so you're wanting to avoid these seams that have the overlocked edge where you see lots of thread kind of wrapped around the edge. And that's because this thread wrapping around the edge is enclosing a cut edge. So that's not the selvage of a fabric, it's a cut edge. And if you tried to unpick all of this stitching, partly it would be very hard work, but then also you would just end up with a absolute kind of messy raw edge. You wouldn't be able to unravel it into a continuous thread, and if you tried to pick up the stitches it would turn into a mess at the sides. So avoid those in terms of opening rows. So, getting overlocked garments out of the way, the golden rule of any opening seams is that you're aiming to obviously only cut the thread that's joining the seam and not damage the knitted fabric. And if you're undoing more than one seam, aim to undo them in the opposite order to how it was put together. If you can figure that out, that's a good way of approaching it. So if you've got a hand knitted garment and a hand sewn seam, I've just got an example here which is from my wardrobe, so I won't actually completely undo it. But if I just give you an idea, so hand knitted garments are sometimes not sewn up with the most perfect sewing. So on this one, if I was wanted to undo this sleeve seam, I would be kind of looking for something that gave me a clue that it was the stitching, as in the sewing, and not the knitted fabric. And I've spotted here there's a kind of looser bit. So if I give a little tug there, and there, and there, I'm sort of getting the feeling that that's a thread that's been stitched backwards and forwards. So if I was to pull there and then snip, then that's where I would be able to open that seam and go each way from there. You can also undo the seams of knitted garments that have been industrially produced. So obviously we've said to avoid those with overlocked seams, but there's loads and loads of knitwear around which has been linked together. The pieces have been knitted to shape, so the edges are selvages, and then it's been joined with a special knitwear process called linking, which creates a chain stitch, which is, once you get the right place, easy to undo. So I'm going to show you how to spot linked seam on the inside, but first I thought I'd just show you these shaping marks. If you can see those and imagine them on your own knitwear. They are the signs that a garment has been knitted to shape. Those are the decrease marks that have been created in that process. So if you look out for those marks, you know that that garment has been fully fashioned, that is knitted to shape, and therefore I would very much expect it to have linked seams on the inside, and you can undo those seams and get back to a kind of nice piece of fabric that has a finished selvage on each side, and you can unravel, reclaim the yarn, open up the stitches and pick them up without everything unravelling at the sides. Okay, so I'll show you on this brown one first. I'm just going to start midway down the body section so you can see, but you'd probably want to start at the top of one end of each section. Right, so on this side, here's the seam, here's the selvage. I can see what looks like, you know, a back stitch or a kind of running stitch, normal sewing stitch. If I look on the other side, let me just turn that over. This is what I'm looking for, which is, hopefully you can see, a sort of column of V stitches, a sort of chain running there. So this is the edge of the fabric and this is the chain, and it's that I want to undo. And every chain stitch will typically look like a sort of this column of V's. A bit harder to see on this one, but the V stitches are kind of pointing to the left, and they show you the direction that it wants to undo. So a chain stitch will undo really nicely, but only in one direction. So this is wanting to undo that way, to the left. So I'm going to undo it up here, and it will unravel going that way. So I need to just cut one half of that chain. You see, it's much easier to spot once you've got your eye in than the hand knitted piece was. So I take those ends out. If I can then tease them out of that loop, pull, hopefully you can maybe see, I've now got this loop that's kind of hanging loose without anything holding it safe. And if I pull that end, there we go, it's a chain stitch that will undo all in one go. It's just hiding itself there. I can open it up. This is quite a worn garment, so you'll see it's just sticking a little bit, but it's coming there. Kind of hard to unroll that edge to show you, so it'll need a little bit of help every now and then. But it's determined to run. There we go. Hopefully you're getting a sense of what's going on there. Okay, so if I keep going, I've got to the label now, which is causing a bit of problem. I'd have to sort that out separately, but you can see that I've opened up that kind of gappy bit is where the stitching was, but at the edge I've got normal selvage from when the piece was knitted, and there's nothing kind of open or unravelling anywhere there. I'll just show you finally on this bit. So this is another fully fashioned piece, but one that's much finer. So we can see the same thing here, but just much tinier. Hopefully you can get a sense of that. So here's the little running stitch, sort of back stitch looking thing on that side. Turn it over, I can see the V's, and they're really little, but they're pointing again to the left. And I can go in, just cut one stitch there, tease that out of the first loop, give it a bit more of a start. I'll do the second one as well, and then something of that end, if I can pull that. Again, it's just getting a bit caught at that point. Hold it at the back, that'll be better. Really hard to show you. There we are, hopefully you can see that. It's really satisfying once it goes. You can undo a whole seam really quickly. So it takes a bit of practice, takes a bit of time to get your eye in to recognise those, the structure of the chain and where to cut. But once you've got it, as I say, it's very satisfying. Okay, so here I've taught you through undoing seams to deconstruct a garment. And the next two videos will show you how to open a row and pick up stitches to replace the cuff or another kind of bottom section of one of these bits, and then how to resew the seams.